Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I'm your host, Scott Stallings, with PrepperCon, and we've got Shane, prepared guy, over here today.
Good morning. Happy to be here.
And our special guest, Jeff Kirkham.
How's it going?
Jeff is with Readyman. We're glad to have you here today. We're going to be having some fun. We're going to talk some winter survival tips and tricks and just all-around good preparedness stuff. So if you guys want to join in the conversation, you can do that by dialing 801-254-5855. Before we jump off, quick announcements. As you guys know, or if you've been listening, we've been talking a lot about Operation Underground Railroad, or Our Rescue, if you go online to find it. I'm steep in the middle of the fundraising event for this week. We are doing a huge fundraiser at Bountiful High School this Friday. It's at 7 o'clock. It's a free entrance. It is kind of a PG-13 audience that we need to make sure we're maintaining. We're talking about child sex trafficking. Really amazing group. Our Rescue is a local group. Tim Ballard founded it, and they're based out of Draper. What they do is they go and they rescue kids from child sex trafficking. And this event's goal is to raise enough money to pay for one of those jumps. Last year they did a jump here in Utah and rescued quite a number of kids, but they stopped a ring of 8 men that were running this ring of child sex trafficking. This happens in our own backyard. And so what we're trying to do is not just raise money, but raise awareness. So if you can make it, get out there. It's going to be Friday, 7 o'clock. We've got a silent auction going on. All the proceeds, 100%, go to Operation Underground Railroad. We also have a fun run on Saturday put on by Run United, which is their website is rununited.org. And it's $30. But here's the cool thing. If you go sign up during the hour, you're going to be eligible to win one of 4 gift cards. We've got 4 Costco gift cards. The value of the gift card is $25. So anyone that registers during the hour, you've got a shot at those. So basically, it's costing you $5 because you're going to get one of those cards back. And we also have a grand prize, a $30 Larry H. Miller. There we go. A $30 Larry H. Miller gift card. So if you want to go to the movies, get some soda, get some popcorn, it'll probably cost you about $30 for 2 people, but this is going to be a gift card for that. So go to rununited.org, go to Facebook, and go to Our Bountiful Rescue. Get involved, help out, see what you can do. We'll talk about it a little bit before the end of the hour again, but this is just a big shout-out and a plug for that. It is the most worthwhile charity event that I can think of.
Absolutely.
I love it.
There's one thing I just wanted to point out. On the silent auction, the prepared guy has an item or 2 up there that you can bid on, and it is an in-home consultation. So if you want to get prepared, if you don't know where to start, depends on where you're at in your situation, you can go ahead and bid on that. It's a pretty good value there, and love to come out to your place, come out to your home, and give you a consultation.
Awesome. So let's switch gears a little bit. It is cold outside, not quite as bad as last week. Last week we had those winds, and those were pretty nasty. My wife and I actually we drove up through the canyon, up through Brigham City into Logan, and we saw an accident on the way. We actually witnessed this thing happening. This kid he was going too fast. It was raining. He wrecked. He actually looked like a skateboarder. His car popped up on the rail, the guardrail, in between lanes, and was sliding. I'm like,
rail slide. Wow.
If he were standing on top of his car, it would have looked really awesome. But we were freaking out. We're like, oh no, what's going to happen to this kid?
Did you have your GoPro going?
I wish I did. My brother-in-law has one in his car all the time going, so he can tell you exactly what happened. So I'm thinking maybe that's the solution. But we saw the whole thing happen, and we were the first on scene. We're bringing out blankets. I got my medical kit ready to go. But it's pouring rain, and it's cold. It was probably 38 degrees. So it's freezing. Well, close to freezing. And then the next...
But cold and wet, that's a bad combination. The worst.
And then the next few days, we're having a fun little vacation. Then on the way back, we're coming back from Bear Lake, and we saw 3 cars that had already been in accidents in the river, upside down.
Wow.
People had already been rescued. But people just aren't being smart enough for winter preparedness, winter survival. So let's talk about that today, because I think it's something that's long overdue. It's always good to be prepared, but it's always smart to double-check your stuff, rotate it for the seasons, be prepared for what you're up against. So let's talk about what are people up against. What do they need to prepare for right now?
for the winter season, and I think for each season, I definitely switch up the gear in my vehicle. Obviously, say for summer, I'll throw in a big a 2.5 3 gallon container of water and just leave it in there all summer long. So the same is holds true for winter as well. You've got to prepare specifically for winter, and you don't necessarily need to have everything you need in your car for every single season.
Right. So one of my biggest things is when you hit winter, always throw in an extra wool blanket. I have one in my car anyways, but I also throw in those little space blankets, the NASA blankets. What are they, Mylar, right?
Yep. Mylar blanket. Yep.
Mylar blankets. Those are great, but they're limited use. You can only use them a couple times before they typically tear and fall apart. There's some nice ones you can get that are reusable long term.
More like a tarp. Yeah,
more like a tarp. And so I think those are great things to have in your car. What else should we have, Jeff?
I think, probably, it's one of those blinding flashes of the obvious, but a good pair of work gloves. If you've got to dig your car out of a snowbank, or you've got to get out and work with your hands because you've done X, Y, and Z, even changing a tire, preserving the warmth in your hands and the dexterity in your hands, really a big deal there. We really saw that. We about a year ago we did the Readyman Challenge. We were out hunting elk, and we had side by sides, and we were constantly getting those things stuck. We were up in the high Uintas.
Oh, fun!
And I always, when I go out, I've got a pair of work gloves that are nice leather work gloves, and then I've got a pair of warm gloves. And so being able to switch back and forth was a big game changer. You're talking almost zero weight difference, but it preserved my hands where, breaking sticks and changing tires and all that stuff. So probably first and foremost, I'd say, well, I wouldn't say first and foremost, but a definite must
High on the list.
High on the list would be a good pair of work gloves.
So a pair of gloves for the wet snow, because you want to use your leather gloves in the wet snow because they'll just get wet and make your hands even colder, right?
Well, but if you're working, changing a tire, or you've got to dig out of the snow,
you
or
need
something.
The dexterity of the leather gloves.
And you need the toughness, or else because if you've got a nice pair of Gore-Tex gloves, you'll just tear them to shreds.
Right, and I guess what I'm saying is you can switch back and forth. So if you're working in the snow, you got your gloves that can handle that are waterproof, or at least somewhat waterproof, and then your leather gloves for your changing tires and
absolutely. And then probably the second thing that I'd recommend is those little heat warmer tabs, the ones that just activate their hand warmers. You can buy a gazillion of them at Costco for $5 or whatever. I'll tell you what, I'm a big believer in those things. They work exceptionally well, and
especially for keeping your hands
and feet. And current research has shown, if you keep your hands and feet warm, your hands and your feet work like radiators on your body.
I agree.
And so if you keep your hands and feet warm, you keep the psychological levels up of comfort, as well as you're providing heat for the rest of your body as well.
So let's talk about that for a second. I think maybe the old school train of thought was, okay, I'm going to wear a vest. I'm going to insulate my core. I'm going to keep my core warm. Whereas I've always felt, okay, if I keep my extremities warm, like you say, you're when you're overly hot, your hands and your feet and your head, you lose heat that way. You cool yourself down that way.
Sure.
And I guess the opposite is true as well. If you want to keep your core warm, you keep your extremities warm.
Absolutely. And the greatest example that I can think about is when you light a campfire and you're cold and you finally get that campfire going. What is the first thing that we do?
Stick your hands over the fire.
You put your hands over that fire, because I think it's one of those things that instinctually, as mammals or whatever, that we've figured out, if we keep our hands warm,
and your feet, stick your feet over the fire,
that we'll be a lot happier. And if you see it, there's a great picture on the Readyman site of Evan's got his feet almost shoved into a campfire because he's cold, and it's. But the rest of him is sitting a ways back, but it's his feet and his hands that he's warming up, and it's one of those. I believe it's one of those instinctual things. So those hand warmers, you can stick them down in your gloves. So if you have to work for an extended period of time, because you've got to keep working to get your vehicle out or walk down a road to get help. So two big things there, I'd say.
I think one of the things that people oftentimes forget, you forget the hand warmers. And those are good for 3 years. Look at the expiration dates on them. They're typically good for 3 years. And the fourth year, they're just not as warm.
Yeah,
they're about half. They run half as long. But staying dry if you're out in the element and you're working, whether it's raining, whether it's snowing, whether it's not, and you're just in the snow, you're going to get wet. And so you want to have things to help stay dry as best you can. Like during the rain, I pulled out ponchos for all the other cars that came down. They were all standing there in a T-shirt, and it's cold. And I'm like, what are you guys doing?
Completely unprepared, no jackets, nothing.
So I've got a waterproof jacket in my car at all times, but also galoshes. I think that's a great thing to have. Big work boots that you can throw over your shoes. So if you're out there for a long time, most people don't wear shoes that are ready for any terrain at any given time.
Yeah.
If I have to dress nice for work, I'm not going to wear my work boots with my nice slacks. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and Scott brings up a great point there is, if you're an outdoorsman and you spend any time outdoors, you know the 3 rules of winter. Stay dry, stay dry, stay dry. That's how important it is in winter. If you get wet, you're in a whole lot of trouble.
In a really easy thing that you can do for your vehicle emergency kit is you don't have to drive around like your Macy's with a bunch of cold weather gear in there, but you can stay dry. Like what I like to tell folks is get a 55-gallon Glad bag, and you can do amazing things with just a garbage bag. It's a poncho, it's a ground cover, it's overhead cover if it's raining because you're changing a tire. You can do so much with a little bit of imagination with just a simple 55-gallon garbage bag. You obviously you don't want to give people your nice Gore-Tex jacket if they're standing on the side of the road,
if they're bleeding or if they're
But that plastic bag will do wonders. We found in the Army life before Gore-Tex. In the Army, and I guess I'm dating myself a little bit, but when I'd first joined, and the warmest thing we had, we called them our pickle suits. They were a rubberized canvas jacket and pants that were made for wet weather. But when it was cold and sleeting and rainy outside, you couldn't peel guys out of them because it was literally the only thing you had that would keep you warm. And it was just simple rubber jacket and pants.
Yeah, that's one thing that I find is all when it's bad weather, and I'm not necessarily out in the weather, but I'm working, I'll wear warm layers, but always have a Gore-Tex shell with me so that if it gets wet, starts to snow, I've got warm layers underneath. I can just throw on this thin shell, which is easy to pack around, easy to keep with me. Throw that on me. It's like being in a tent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Gore-Tex was like a
miracle.
We called it LBG in the Army, life before Gore-Tex. It's like, were you LBG? Oh, yeah, I know all about life before Gore-Tex.
Yep, absolutely.
Oh, my gosh,
good
that's
stuff.
Funny.
And I think this is where maybe we stray a little bit is we need to come up with a plan. Where are you going? How far are you traveling? Are you just along the Wasatch Front? Are you going to be, say if you did slide off the road, and you've got a business that's a block away, or you've got a home that's a block away. But then if you're traveling, all the way to southern Utah or northern Idaho, your plans are going to be dramatically different in what you keep in your vehicle.
Absolutely. Like you think of the fun song, Over the River and Through the Woods. To grandmother's house we go. They didn't have an accident. They didn't have a problem to deal with, but we all will. I mean, that's just the law of inevitability. We will have some type of challenge that we're going to be facing. And it's whether we're traveling or we're at home. I mean, some of the other things to think about are, the things that I faced last year and the year before is we had some ice storms that kind of came, popped out power in Murray. Okay, no power for a day and a half. Bountiful 2 years ago had no power for like 3 days. What is your backup plan for those? And we're coming up on a break here, but think about those things. Think about, what can I do to be better prepared for just about anything in general, but primarily let's talk winter. So if you want to join in the conversation, the phone number is 801-254-5855. You can also find us on Facebook at KTalk Utah and Twitter, KTKK, and also at KTalk Radio. We're excited to be here. This is something that we're all really passionate about. Join in the conversation. Help us out. Let us know what questions you have, and we'll be right back. Hey guys, welcome back. We're here with Readyman today, and we're talking about winter survival. I actually had a question that just came in through social media. What should moms be doing when they're traveling in cold weather, whether it's a short distance or long distance? That's a question that just came in. Jeff, you've got kids. You're married. What do you do with your wife? What does she do to be better prepared?
You know, there's some real commonsensical things that you can do if you're traveling a distance. You know, first and foremost, make sure that you've got a full tank of gas. You know, fill up that tank of gas. Make sure that you're going to be good to go. And then, you know, and I'm assuming we're moving vehicular. You know, with a car. You know, the second thing you want to make sure is that you've got tires that are up to snuff. Now, not everybody can spend, you know, a lot of money on, you know, state-of-the-art Blizzaks, but make sure that your tires are up to snuff. If you're driving around on bald tires with wires showing through, you know, as soon as the first frost hits, it's probably a good time to run down to Discount Tire. And because some tread is better than no tread. Racing slicks are not racing on icy roads. You'll go right off the road. And then I think, you know, before you even leave, know where that you can tie into your vehicle to have it pulled out of a ditch. So if a Good Samaritan stops by, trying to figure out where you can tie in a rope or a chain or something so that you can get pulled out of the ditch. Because when you're cold, you don't care. When your kids are crying and you just want them to be happy, you don't care. And so, but what you don't want to do is pulling the front bumper off your minivan. You're not helping anybody. So
I've actually been in that situation, and it wasn't even in a ditch. I had a friend that broke down. This is when I was in college. Friend broke down. I had a truck, but it wasn't a real truck. It was one of those little tiny. It was a Datsun truck. It was 4-wheel drive. It was rusty. It was horrible. But one of my friends was like, "Hey, can you help me out? Our car died." And I'm like, "Sure." And so I brought a tow strap. I'm like, "Where do I strap it?" And they're like, "Oh, this hook here." So I hooked it to the hook that they said, "Oh yeah, this is where you hook it." And I just ripped all these wires, you know, a few pipes from the underneath their car, and I'm like, I don't think that was a hook for towing. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I think I just ripped something off your car, and it cost them another $1,000 to repair their car because that wasn't an appropriate thing to be connected
and in
to.
many cases, like with modern vehicles, you do some kind of damage like that. Now you can't drive it, so now you've gone from a bad situation to a worse situation. So. Yeah. Take the few minutes and understand and say, hey, I can tie in right here, 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 and here to get my vehicle out of a ditch.
Yeah, and Jeff brings up some really good points. Is I guess first of all, tires. You don't have to have, like you say, the expensive Blizzaks. They're fantastic if you can afford them. Great, but I see a lot of people that have those kinds of tires and they drive excessively fast. So you have to drive according to the conditions. But also, if you have a good set of all all-terrains that have a lot of sipes that have, like you say, good tread, and you drive accordingly, those tires are going to do you just fine.
Sure, and it's you know, I know Tim O'Neill fairly well. He was a North American rally driving champion. And the guy could drive so fast on snowy roads that you thought he was going to go back in time at some point. But he had a great saying was, you know, I'd been out to his school a bunch of times, and Tim was like, hey, you can be the greatest driver in the world, but you're not going to outdrive physics. If there's not enough grip on the road and you're going too fast, you will go off the road. And it doesn't matter what you've got on your tires or whatnot. You're just upping, you know, your chances. And the faster you're going, the deeper into the woods or deeper into the ditch you're going to go.
Absolutely. The more wreckage is going to happen, the faster you're going. As perfectly exampled in my situation a week and a half ago. You know, this kid totaled his car because he was driving too fast in wet conditions. He came up over the crest of a hill. The road started to turn. Wet conditions, he slid right into the guardrail, up onto the guardrail, thrashed his car, and then thankfully didn't hit any other cars, but he launched himself back across 2 lanes of traffic and into a ditch.
Yeah, and I guess another thing that Jeff was bringing up is another great point is not only know your tow points, have a strap with you.
Have a strap with you.
And not a chain, but a strap. These straps are meant to stretch. They're meant to be yanked on, and they're meant for vehicle recovery. So
awesome.
Yeah, they're called kinetic straps. So what you do is the stretch actually stretches and acts like a rubber band.
It bounces the car.
So it protects both vehicles, and then what happens is once it gets stretched, then it pulls back in.
Yeah, absolutely. And
awesome.
And
we actually have a caller. Let's go ahead and take that caller. Hey, you're on air with K-Talk.
Hi. So I just wanted to call in because the topic that you're talking about with moms and driving with kids, excuse me. I think one of the things that it just came to my mind as you guys were talking that we overlook, I mean, it's great to have, you know, your tires and everything checked, but what about if we have to get out of the car with your kids? And when it's cold and everything. And I just calling because I was just thinking about this, and I'm the type of mom that, moms like to have the cute purse or the cute, I don't know, I guess you could say diaper bag. But what's really practical, especially in cold weather when you have kids, if you had to get out of your car? And I carry around like a camel pack, and because you can strap it on you if you have to go. But besides,
what age are your kids?
I have a little 3-year-old. Well, she's turning 4, and then I'm pregnant. So I will be having a little one soon. And it just made me think, like, if I had to get out of the car and had to haul these kids out, what do I need? And I think we overlook that a lot. We think, our cars are safe. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure, and I would say first, if you've got to get out of your vehicle, so worst case scenario, you always want to try and stay with your vehicle if you can. But if you have to get out and you have to walk, for you especially being pregnant, boy, I would always have a stroller in my vehicle because 4-year-olds, I have a 4-year-old myself, and they get tired really fast. And when they start getting cold and tired, they don't want to walk, and that's not doing anybody any good. And you with, expecting, having a little stroller there so that you can push them along. And the other advantage of a stroller is you can put other supplies on there. They can carry the blankets and like the camelback that you're talking about. And so you can get that weight off yourself. So now all of a sudden you're conserving your energy that you have so that you can make it further.
That's a really good idea. I hadn't thought about the stroller necessarily. I thought about, like a baby swing.
Yeah, I think anything that you could use to, if you have smaller kids, if you have a child backpack, to have that in there. And also, I would say, of course, women don't always wear dressy shoes. They wear, it's not always appropriate for the weather, for the season.
Or you're running out and you put flip-flops on and there's snow outside. Not practical.
Yeah, have some snow boots in there, something that you can slip on, take your high heels off. And I don't mean to to categorize you there with just high heels, but if you know what I mean, just have some appropriate footwear.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, hey, thank you for calling in. We appreciate you.
Great. Thanks, guys. Bye.
See, and that's the thing is we don't know, one of us by ourselves, it's not always easy to know everything you need to do to get ready for anything, right? That's the reality. You can't always be ready for anything, but you can be better prepared for it. That's what we're talking about today. We're talking about winter preparedness. A lot of it's been around the cars, about trips. Jeff brought up a great point. Fill up that tank. I never let my tank get at
below
half. The half mark is kind of like my indicator. Time for new gas.
Yep.
Just because you never know what's going to happen, but you also don't know if you're going to need to go help rescue somebody or if you need to go visit somebody that needs your love and attention. It's the holiday season. It's a great time to get out and do nice things for other people. This is when people start thinking about it more, but make sure you're in a position that you're going to be able to help them when you get there.
Well, and it may be a matter of just like what happened with you at Logan Canyon. You may be sitting on the side of the road for
hours,
an hour or two. You're not going to leave this person stranded, and so now you've got your vehicle sitting there. The environmentalists will scream, but you're sitting on the side of the road with your car idling so you don't freeze to death. As that vehicle idles, you're going to continue to burn gas. So if you're driving around on next to empty, you're not going to, you're not doing yourself or anybody else any favors at that point either. So it could be something as mundane as sitting on the side of the road waiting for the tow truck to show up.
Yeah,
and absolutely. And also, as Scott had mentioned previously, with these ice storms we had a few years ago, I know traffic was backed up in certain, like on Redwood Road for, I think even 4 and 5 hours at some point with some of these snowstorms. And if you had a quarter tank of gas, maybe you didn't have enough gas in there to keep your car running and keep you warm.
Well, think about that storm that we had, that freak storm that we had, I think it was 2 years ago. It wasn't here in Utah. It was down south. Was it 2 years ago where people were stranded on the roads because they just hit this winter storm in the south? Mm-hmm. It was either 2 or 3 years ago. But they were running their cars so long that the car would die because it was out of gas. And that only took them an hour or two.
Now you're a roadblock.
And then people were walking to... I remember one guy opened his Chick-fil-A back up because people couldn't get home and just invited everybody in there to stay warm. Those types of situations, you never know when they're going to hit. They expected a little bit of rain. And then what they got was a blizzard for them. We try to prepare for whatever we know or whatever we expect, maybe based on what we hear on the weather, but the weather's not 100% accurate. The forecast is always a best guess, a best estimate based on what they see. but we don't always see what's going to actually happen. And so when you're at home, too, let's talk about homes. When you're at home, it's always good to have backup heating solutions. Or if you don't have a backup heating solution, have a plan. I was reading this article the other day about how valuable it is to just set up a tent inside of your home and get everybody in the tent because it'll hold that heat so much better.
Right. Say if you lose power, you lose your heat. That's a fantastic way. I know that's something that we use in caving. When you're in a large cave and you're in a couple miles and it's on the cold side, you've got a tent in there, and it's a lot easier to heat a small tent than it is your entire house.
Absolutely.
Get something to kind of reflect that heat back in and preserve it. Yeah, absolutely.
So what are some other good examples of winter survival that you guys have faced in your lives? And callers, feel free to join in and kind of share your experiences. I've done winter campouts galore through scouting, and I think in Utah we've got a lot of people that have done scouting. They call them the polar bear challenges and the Klondike campouts, and we talk about you can build a snow cave or you can do a ton of different things. But I think for me it always came back to staying dry. And a lot of times when you get wet, whether you're at home or whether you're out, you're miserable. If you don't have a change of socks, a change of shoes.
Most scouts don't stay dry.
Yeah,
Scouts don't stay dry.
Scouts never stay dry, and they never follow the rules with fire or their knives or staying dry. Those are the three fundamentals of being a scout.
If you're not well-versed, it's real easy to say, hey, we're going to go out and dig a snow cave. And there was a great Bear Grylls show where he builds a snow cave. And he climbs in there, and there's a lot of art to building a snow cave.
You can build it wrong and still sleep cold.
You build it wrong, and when Bear Grylls came out, and you figure everything that guy had been through, just in the name of entertainment. And he came out and he's looked at the camera and he said, "I do believe that was my absolute worst night's sleep I've ever had in my life."
I think I saw that one.
The cold stuff. I was in the cold weather battalion up in. When I was on active duty in Special Forces, and it was just one of those. And on top of that, I was on a dive team.
Oh man!
So it was like wet and cold was just a fact of life, and it was. You quickly learn what works and what doesn't work. That was a long time ago. There's fantastic stuff out now versus
the gear in particular.
The gear back in those days. But staying warm and dry is paramount. And if you can't stay dry, try to stay warm.
Absolutely. So when you're at home, what are some things winter-wise that we can take care of better to be better prepared for, say we get a freak blizzard? What are some backup things that you could do to be better prepared? I mean, if the power goes out, your fridge and freezer are no longer working, what do you guys recommend doing?
Well, I think your fridge and freezer would still be working. Your fridge might be a little bit colder than you want it, but
yeah, you always put your food outside, right?
Put your food outside.
But what I think in that particular way is, I've got the garage, and that ends up becoming my fridge or my freezer, right? And also, I think more of, and I don't necessarily think of, what am I going to do with my fridge if the power goes out in winter? That's not as big a concern as, how am I going to heat the house? And so I think, I had mentioned previously is we've got a gas fireplace, but it does require some electricity to run the fan and so forth, but it would still work. So that's, an alternative for us to heat the house. We also have kerosene heaters as well. So kerosene is relatively safe to store, and it's meant for indoor heating, so the CO2 that comes off is minimal. You still need to provide some ventilation, but that's my personal backup plan, as well as some propane heat as well.
We found, like Korea is. I lived in Korea for a time, and we found we'd heard kind of everybody because the heating we weren't staying in the best places, and we would end up putting everybody in one room, one of the smaller rooms. Mm-hmm. That had the most insulation, and you quickly figure out it's like trying to figure that out right now when you're not cold is pretty almost impossible. But if you walk around your house when it starts getting cold, you quickly figure out, hey, this room's staying warmer than the rest of the other rooms.
Yeah.
And it may be upstairs, it may be downstairs, and some scientists will tell you one thing or the other. But the reality is you just got to figure out which room that is as it's getting cold. And then you put everybody in that room because your body heat, you've got everybody in there that's close to 100 degrees, 98 point whatever. And that are heating that room as well. And so now, just like the 10 idea that you had before, now everybody's staying in that room, and then keep the door closed so that you can preserve as much heat as you can. You can put the towels and whatnot underneath the door, and then you can bring all the blankets in there so that it makes it nice little comfy area.
Family sleepover.
Family sleepover. But then those blankets, in addition to keeping you warm, they're also insulating the room as well. So keep the window blinds down, because that's going to help reflect the heat. If you can throw some stuff up in the windows to help reflect the heat back in there, all of that stuff is going to help tremendously for preserving that heat that you have.
One thing I always find is a nice cold morning, lean against the sliding glass door window, and you can feel that heat radiating off of there. So maybe your kitchen is a good place as well that gets a lot of sunlight.
And that's another thing that folks can do. You always have to be cognizant of, depending on what kind of stove you have, but you always have to be cognizant of the CO2. But you can turn your stove on, too. Now, like the fire marshal will probably scream for that advice. But if you're boiling water or whatnot, or you're cooking something, you can open up that door so that you're now continuing to heat your. And if you have a gas
Absolutely. We're running into a break. We'll be right back, and we've got a caller on the line we'll bring on as soon as we get back. Thank you. There, everybody. We're coming back in. Hey, thanks for being here for PrepperCon Radio. Again, today we've got Jeff from Readyman. And Jeff, tell us about your website real quick.
So Readyman is readyman.com, and it's spelt just the way that it sounds, readyman.com. And it's a membership-based internet site where we provide online training. We do live trainings as well, but we do online training for survival skills, and for we cover the gambit, everything from do-it-yourself stuff to emergency preparedness to survival skills to firearms. Pretty much nothing's off the table with us. And then we also provide a bunch of free content as well out there to members as well. So that's Readyman. It's actually a good time, and we make the videos entertaining as well as instructional, so
awesome. People's
eyes aren't rolling in the back of their head.
Well, we appreciate you guys. We got a caller. Let's go ahead and take this call. Hey, caller, you're on air. What can we do for you?
I was just wondering if kerosene had a shelf life.
That's a great question. I don't know how to answer that exactly. I think this shelf life that I've noticed on kerosene depends on where you store it, what temperature you store it, because basically it will evaporate through the plastic, through the cap, if it's in a warmer temperature.
Will it still be good if there's...
I'm sorry?
Will it still be good if there's some in the container?
It will, absolutely. It will still burn. It's kind of like it's not like gasoline where it loses BTUs, I guess you could say. So it's meant for longer-term storage. But that's a great question. I need to do a little more research on that myself.
So you don't have to put a stabilizer in it?
No, you do not.
Oh, that's great.
So, yeah, you can get that in smaller gallon sizes, 5-gallon, and 55-gallon drums. And, I mean, you still need to be careful with how you store it. But it is much more stable and safer to store than gasoline and other fuels. Although propane is probably going to be the best fuel to store for shelf life as well as safety.
Even if the kerosene is out in the garage and it freezes or something?
Yeah, it's still a liquid. It's still flammable. You still need to be careful with it.
You can still use... Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Great question.
Awesome.
Thank you for calling.
We had another caller that dropped off. If you want to call back in, we'd love to take your question as well. We're here. The phone number here is 801-254-5855. This is PrepperCon Radio on AM 630 K-Talk, which is the first and my favorite best talk radio in Utah. We're also streamed all over the world, so if you've got friends that you want to have listen to this, they can always access our archives. The website is k-talk.com.
You can also download the app and listen live anywhere.
Absolutely. All right, we got another caller. Hey, thanks for calling in. You're on air.
Hey, thanks for taking my call.
You are welcome. What can we do for you today?
Well, I had two comments that I haven't heard you talk about yet, of things that you need to keep in mind. The first is a situation where my husband and I was driving down the freeway, coming home. It was in the wintertime. Weather was okay. It wasn't snowing or anything, but there was snow on the ground. We hit a patch of black ice, and he cocked his hat around and said, "Okay, here we go." And I was driving. We ended up in the median, rocked back and forth several times, fishtailed, got back up on the road, fishtailed some more, and I finally got it under control. And he was guiding me every step of the way. And the reason why I talked about that incident is because that shows that we need to keep calm.
Absolutely. That's a really great point.
I have never, ever, I would have been freaking out. I would have tipped that thing over several times if I had been alone. But he kept calm. He said, okay, here we go. Don't pound on the brake, tap it lightly. He was the one that kept me calm. And so we need to remember to stay calm in any emergency situation, because if you don't, you can't concentrate, you can't think properly, overcorrect, that kind of thing.
And you came out of it okay for staying calm.
Awesome. What was your second point that you have for us?
The other point was listen to your intuition. The reason why I bring this up is because we had an incident where we were going hunting. As we were loading up, right before we were to jump in the truck to leave, something told me to get a box and throw all the socks, every sock I could find. I opened up all the drawers, grabbed all my husband's socks and threw them in his box. Took the box of socks with us. I have no idea why. Well, I know now. We got up. We were hunting on the Skyline Drive. We got back into this little alcove and parts of the night. An early storm came in. It was kind of eerie the night before. Kids went to bed. Husband and I sitting out talking. It was an extremely clear night. He looked up and said, And I'm, what? And he says, oh, nothing. Well, he knew what was coming. We woke up to snow that was up to the top of our tires, and we were driving a Suburban at the time that had large tires on it. We had snow that hit us. To make a long story short, we got everybody out of the tent just in time. Tent collapsed. We had not anticipated an early storm coming in, so we were not prepared. Did not have any winter gear or anything. My husband's a mechanic. He had no gloves. He had to use those socks on his hands to work on the vehicle. He got the chains on somehow. I can't remember how, but somehow the brake line broke, and we had to ride all the way into Orangeville. I don't know, some orange place up there. We should have died. We should have died on that trip coming down off that mountain. But by the grace of God, I listened to my intuition, grabbed all those socks. He knew how to stay calm, and we came down off the mountain with 3 young kids,
Awesome.
And all of us were fine. So stay calm, and if you have that little inkling to grab socks for whatever reason, grab the socks, because you don't know what they may do in the end.
Awesome. Hey, thank you so much.
Yeah, I think it comes down to your experience. The more experience you have, the more prepared and the things you'll know you need to have as you go out on trips like that.
Well, and looking for alternative uses for items that we might have, like we were talking about the garbage bags that can be used for so many different things, and using socks for your hands. Don't keep your mind open, stay creative. That's a big part of staying calm, and the psychological aspect that we were talking about during the break of, hey, when you're cold and miserable, your creativity and your intuition just plummets.
Yes.
So if you can keep those simple things, sometimes those are complex, those staying warm, but if you can keep those in place, then those inventive solutions to problems really are easier to find.
Well, and also practice. I mean, we always talk about, let's practice our fire drills. Let's practice our tornado drills, our earthquake drills. Practice, put together a plan and do practice scenarios for winter drills. How to change your tire in the winter, how to, go through it. And even if it's just mindset stuff, you can go through a ton of different things to practice to help you keep calm and to pay attention to your intuition. We've got some more callers. Let's go ahead and take another one. Hey, caller, you're live on K-Talk. What have you got for us today?
Oh, a few items. Well, if you're going out camping, take gloves and take gear, and tools. Let's see. Back in '92, I had the power go off for 6 or 7 days, here in South Jordan, whatever. Mm-hmm. So I had a little, what do you call it, a propane heater or propane tank, and I had one of those infrared things that, you put on top. I didn't get any monoxide, the reason being is, I want to keep the pipes from freezing.
Right. Yeah,
the
and
monoxide.
there are heaters that are specific for indoor, for propane.
Well, it wasn't,
Right.
I'm sure it puts off some monoxide. It's infrared, but there's going to be some. It's got some kind of combustion going. But, the convection would draw the heat away through the whole volume of the whole place. So,
Yeah, and if you have some fresh airflow coming in, you're
well,
better
I'm
off.
just talking about the indoor air. I didn't open the window or anything. It was really cold outside, but there was no power for 6 or 7 days. And, I fell asleep in front of it for 4 hours, and I woke up. But another thing, if you can get a bale of hay, people can't really get them anymore. But I guess you get out of IFA and put a hose around it and soak it with some water, and fill the hose with water. That bale of hay will start to get really hot.
Really
Interesting.
You can't really put it in the house, but maybe you could put it out on the porch under a
some source
tarp
of
or
heat,
something. Because
We're gonna have
sometimes
to try
they
that.
Have to look into that.
So we're going to head down either Cal Ranch, IFA, or one of those other country stores. We're going to grab
Well, yeah,
ourselves.
and then you run the
hay.
hose in the house. You run the hose in the house around the baseboard areas, and that hose is going to put off a lot of heat because it's going to get hot, like 200 degrees,
Really?
150 degrees. But you want to keep the hay out there because sometimes you can get, with haystack fires, they can combust if you have some wet hay. They
All
can
right.
combust on their own.
Well, we're gonna have to try that one now. We'll watch for a video on PrepperCon and Prepared Guy. I'm gonna
See
put
what
that
we
in
can do
Shane's pocket and
in
make
my
him go
court.
try that.
Oh, listen, if you got to hook up something, hook it to the alternator. That way, that's about the only thing left where you won't tear everything out,
Sounds good. Hey, thanks so much for your call. All right. We've got a little more time left. One more shout out for Readyman. Thank you so much, Jeff, for being here today. We really appreciate you. We love your knowledge, expertise, and just your experience. You've done a lot of things that a lot of us just haven't done.
That we've seen in the movies.
I like to say I've screwed up enough things that I've figured out the less screwball way to do things. When you're given like Glad bags and a pair of old galoshes that were from World War II, you quickly start learning some of the tricks. But yeah, I mean, I'd say come check us out on readyman.com or our store, readymanstore.com. We've got a blog on there and a forum and whatnot, and people can check that out and see what we're all about. And we're teaming up quite a bit with Prepared Guy and with PrepperCon, and we're going to definitely be at PrepperCon this year. So it's going to be a great year for us.
Awesome.
We're excited. We've got a fun show coming up in April. That's for PrepperCon. It's at Southtown Expo Center. Readyman's going to be there doing some training. They've got some of their gear they're going to bring. We've also got a shoot house. You can actually learn how to sweep your house correctly with a firearm. But there'll be safe rounds. We're using, it's kind of like a simunition. We've also got some other fun stuff. We've got some stars coming. Michael Hawk's coming out. Ruth England is coming out.
Hurricane house.
We've got a hurricane simulator. Only one in the world that I've seen that allows you to try it out. Winds up to 120 miles an hour.
That'll be fun.
Tickets are on sale now if you go online, PrepperCon.com. We're also still have booths going out for exhibitors. If you want to get in, space is limited, so you want to get in quick. Go to PrepperCon.com. With the last few minutes of the hour, I do want to circle back and talk about the OUR event this Friday night. If you can make it, if you have anything in your heart that says kids need to be safe and protected, come to Bountiful High School at 7 o'clock. Be there at 7 o'clock. We've got some amazing things coming up that's going to help rescue kids from child sex trafficking. That's all the time we have today. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening in.
Thanks for coming, Jeff.
Hey,
Great to have
thanks
you
for
again.
having me.